You ready? Okay. Okay, we're gonna call our meeting to order. It is 5:30. This is the regular meeting for the Planning Commission. Today is July 15th, 2025. The land that we know as Sequim was once inhabited solely by First Peoples known as the S'Klallam people, represented by the three tribal governments, Lower Elwha S'Klallam, Jamestown S'Klallam, and Port Gamble S'Klallam. We serve as stewards of the land within the city of Sequim with the same care and consideration the S'Klallam tribes has and continues to provide. This acknowledgement is a respect to the S'Klallam people and their history. The Planning Commission serves as an advisory body to the City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide guidance and direction for Sequim's future growth through continued review and improvement to Sequim's comprehensive plan, zoning code, shoreline management, environmental protection, and related land use documents. The Planning Commission will have all of the powers and perform each and all of the duties specified by Chapter 35A.63 RCW as amended and set forth or amended by ordinance. Roll call. Emily, will you please take roll call?
Yes, absolutely. Commissioner Kuntz.
Present.
Commissioner Cummings.
Here.
Commissioner Fain. Commissioner Habel. Commissioner Hueth. Commissioner Lefevre.
Here.
Commissioner Mahalik.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, approval of minutes. Has the commission had a chance to look over the minutes for the June 17th, 2025 meeting? And is there any discussion or corrections on that? Okay, if not, can I have a motion? Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written for the June 17th meeting, please raise your hand. Okay, minutes stand approved. Thank you. Public comment, general public comment will be heard at this time. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. Is there anybody, I don't see anybody in the room that might want to provide public comment. Emily, is there anybody online that would like to provide public comment?
No one has their hand raised in the lobby, so no.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then we will close the public comment session of this meeting and we'll move on to general business, which is the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Status Update. Karla.
Well, hello, planning commissioners. Good evening. And what do we call this time of day? Good. It's not quite evening. It's late afternoon.
Yeah.
Good late afternoon. Anyway, it is my pleasure to be here tonight. As always, our interim DCD director, Christina, was not able to attend tonight's meeting and she sends her regrets, but I assure her we will have a good, productive meeting. Anyway, so for your status update, as usual, you have the memo in your packet that just is documenting our progress through the comprehensive plan chapters. And a couple things I wanted to just note on our table that's in the document that has changed since we sent it out last week. And that is, it's looking like we might need a little bit more time to prepare Title 17, the Land Division Ordinance, before bringing it forward to the Planning Commission, which you will see on your schedule was scheduled for your 2 meetings in September. We do still intend to bring it to you. Probably it may even be starting at that second meeting in September. We just need a little bit more time. But the capital facilities chapter, which is slated for your first meeting in October, will move up in whatever open slot it is in September. So I believe we're close on getting that the capital facility chapter through the internal review. So I think that we won't miss a beat. It will just meaning realigning a couple of the topics. So other than that, we're still on course for climate and resiliency. At your August meeting, we'll be going to the city and staff or the city internal sustainability committee in about, I think it's in 2 weeks, to finalize their review of the chapter before it goes into the packet to you. So the Parks and Open Space chapter as well I will be finishing my work with the Parks and Recreation Parks Arbor Recreation Board. Next on Monday, in fact, hopefully this is meeting number 3, so hopefully we'll be able to finish up their review, and that will again be coming to you in August. What else I'd want to note is under the other comprehensive plan related work, we, I think as I reported last time, we have received 11 applications for our comprehensive plan amendment, site specific to the maps. We are, we haven't quite got that underway yet, but Emily is getting us going, and so we'll be working on getting those applications organized and reaching out to the property owners. I know a couple of you were copied. I think, Julianne, you were on an email from the Serenity House just asking where we're at. That's where we're at. We're getting underway, and we'll be contacting the applicants in the next 2 weeks and starting our conversations with them. They won't come before you for a little bit longer, but we will be starting our initial conversations with the property owners. The most exciting news is what's happening next week, which is Leland Consulting and our team from the economic firm will be up in Sequim on Thursday and Friday of next week. We have reached out to over 30 business owners, property owners, developers, real estate, economic developers, and have asked them if they would come and be interested in meeting with our consultants. We have a number of appointments that have already been made, but for you get to join the city council if you would like on that Thursday evening. It will be very informal. We'll set up tables here in the front area here where you can just sit around with the city council and our consultants, as well as myself and Christina, and Travis will probably be there as well. And we'll have I'm hoping for an engaging and robust conversation with our consultant team. So you don't have to RSVP, come to the meeting if you can. If you can't, that's okay too. We're going to notice it as if we had a quorum for everything. So just anybody, you're all welcome to attend. And if you can, that would be fantastic. So we'll be passing along the results of a lot of the public engagement that has already happened to date for them to the consultants. So they will have already seen all of that work, as well as back in March when we kind of went through that exercise with the scenarios and the different housing types, that will also be passed along to the consultant. So they'll know those things have already happened. So our hope is not to be redoing what's already been done, but kind of taking the next step and refining our conversations and adding jobs, employment, and economic development into the conversation, which so far we haven't done yet. And so last night I gave a status update to the city council, and that went well. And we'll have another status update to the city council at their second meeting in August. So that's my status update. Any question? Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Karla. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so now we'll move on to new business, which is the draft for the transportation chapter.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, I actually have a short PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to kick off our conversation with. So Emily is pulling that up for me. Thank you, Emily. But we also have our city engineer here tonight, and Nick will be able to answer any questions that may be beyond my wheelhouse. But I wanted to just share with you, while the PowerPoint's coming up, the process that we went through on developing this chapter. This is I would say, first of all, this will be the kind of the meatiest chapter that you've gotten into probably since we started, although natural environment, I would say is it's a good second. But this one definitely has had the highest level of collaboration on the development of the chapter, where as we started with the existing transportation master plan goals and policies, I added some recommendations into it, passed it on to Nick and his team. Him and his traffic engineer reviewed it, and Transpo, the city's transportation consultant, reviewed it, and then we reviewed it again a second round. So hopefully we're giving you a really solid, I believe we are a solid chapter to start our conversation with, and just know that a lot of eyes have been on it as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and give you, what I'd like to do is just have a few PowerPoint slides that introduces you to the transportation chapter. The transportation components of the Growth Management Act are multifaceted, and so I felt like it might be worth just taking a few minutes to kind of walk through what those are, because you're going to see transportation more than just tonight, and I wanted to walk through what some of those are. So go ahead, Emily, next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Sorry. So I wanted to start with just giving you the framework of what the Growth Management Act says that we have to do in transportation. And that is that the land use assumptions must be used in determining the travel demand. The transportation element, or the comprehensive plan must include an existing conditions section, must identify level of service standards for all local and state transportation facilities. We have to provide forecast of traffic based on land use, land use and the growth projection. So we need to make sure that what our land use and our growth projections and for housing units and jobs are integrated into the transportation planning. There's a requirement that to bring transportation facilities that fall requirements for bringing transportation facilities that fall below the LOS based upon forecast, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. The financing analysis and demand management strategies, and then a new component that of pedestrian and bicycle that was passed by the state legislature in 2024, I believe. So those are all the requirements and we're going to see them in different places in our comprehensive plan. So next slide. Thank you. So here's where we're going to see how we're going to meet those requirements. They're going to touch kind of all three elements of what you're going to see in a comprehensive plan. You're going to have goals and policies, and that's what we're talking about tonight. The transportation will also be one of the sections of the capital facilities plan, and that capital facilities plan, including the financing, will have some maps and figures. And again, like I said, these are going to be met through the transportation chapter, which we're talking about tonight, goals and policies, the transportation master plan, which is a functional plan that is being developed by Transpo and under the direction and guidance of our city engineer. And then the capital facilities plan, which will be an appendix to the comprehensive plan, where all capital facilities are going to live, and they're going to live in shorter sections than the transportation master plan. It's basically going to present a summary of that, but that the capital facility plan is a requirement of the Growth Management Act. So then the graphic I just want to speak really quickly about the graphic. I thought that is a really nice way that kind of gives you a graphic representation of what the previous slide says, is that these are all the things that go into a transportation master plan. Pieces of it are going to live in the policy document, and some will live in the capital facility plan, and they all will live in the transportation master plan. All right, there we go. Next slide. So a little bit about level of service. Level of service is a quantitative measure of traffic operational conditions. It's based on the amount of time each vehicle has to wait to go through the intersection during a particular hour, and that hour can be AM peak, it can be PM peak, or as I just recently learned, peak in SQUIM is midday peak. So midday in SQUIM. So the level of service thresholds vary by the type of intersection. So whether it's a stop sign, a signal, or a roundabout. And so here is the graphic that kind of defines what the level of service is from A to F. And I realized that I have another graphic that I should have shown that shows what that means in delay, because everyone has a preconceived idea of like F is the worst. It's, which it is considered, but the difference sometimes between a C and an F is, just a number of seconds. It's not like we're talking very long periods of time. So even though an intersection might have a level of service F, a local jurisdiction can determine that that's an acceptable level of service. And so that is not uncommon, because the delay is something that they have chosen as a jurisdiction that they can live with, either because there's no improvements that are able to be conducted at that intersection, or for a variety of reasons. But for SQUIM, the level of service that has been in the current comprehensive plan and is being proposed in the chapter that's before you tonight is that the vehicular level of service is, except for Washington Street, a level of service D. And then Washington Street has a level of service F within the downtown, and then must maintain a level of service E outside of the downtown. So that's our current level of service for car vehicles, and is being proposed to be continued in the chapter that you for tonight. Okay, next slide. So talking a little bit about how does level of service intersect with our growth projections. So the Growth Management Act requires that when you're looking at your transportation network, you need to use the population and employment growth targets and the zoning. And in fact, I was talking to Nick about it before the meeting. We're getting to a point where we're ready to start having those conversations where we help and provide to the transportation model the number of people that are going to live in a certain area for growth, as well as housing units and jobs. And then they can take assumptions based on how many trips are going to be generated based on that growth, in addition to your baseline traffic. And that's when you can, and that's that second bullet there, it compares existing conditions to the growth projections through the demand model. And future demand forecast will utilize the level service standard, so of the D, level service D for all the city except for portion in downtown, to determine which intersections may experience decreased level of service from the existing level of service conditions. And from this analysis, that's where failing level service intersections are going to be identified. So it's taking existing traffic, adding on the growth traffic, then determining what for intersections, and determining what that new growth will do to that intersection at a particular time of day. So at your peak time. Next slide. So then what happens is, once we have that list of intersections, then that GMA requires that actions be identified to address those facilities that don't meet the adopted level of service standards. So the Transportation Master Plan that will identify those projects that are needed to accommodate the future growth impact on the city's transportation system. And a list of projects will also include all modes, and that's one of that new requirement of GMA, where we need to look at our non-motorized, our active transportation modes as well. And there's new level of service standards that you might have seen in the policy for pedestrian and for bicycle called level of stress. And that is the industry standard for how to determine a level of service for pedestrians and bicyclists. And from this analysis of, okay, where our level service, where our standard, or where our intersections having level of service standards that are below our adopted or desired level of service, and what improvements are necessary. Sometimes there may be nothing that can be done to an intersection if based on topography or critical areas or other elements. But if there is something that can be done, then that should be identified. And the transportation system needs list is going to be based on the 20 years of needed projects to accommodate the growth. So the list of projects is going to be developed completely aligned and informed by the growth, our growth allocation as given to the city by Clallam County. So next slide. And then the last, I think almost to the last piece of what GMA requires a transportation element to have is the financing. And so it requires a multi-year financing plan showing the city's ability to fund existing and future transportation system improvements. It needs to identify likely funding sources for those improvements. So they're going to be things if there's going to be new taxes or where an existing budget goes towards transportation, impact fees, tax or gas tax money, grants for the city. There's a transportation benefit district, and any other possible funding sources that might come about. Improvements might be paid for in part by developer projects and improvements that they are required to do as part of their approval. And then finally, the transportation master plan will also be again included in the capital facility plan, needs to identify those projects for the next 20 years, and then the funding, the cost estimate, the preliminary cost estimate. So again, it's going to be very high level, right at the comprehensive land level. Certainly not for any construction related, but for planning purposes. So we'll have preliminary cost estimates for 6 years, and those projects from the 20-year will be identified, prioritized onto the 6-year capital improvement plan, and then what those probable funding sources are. So again, GMA requires 20 years of projects, but 6 years of cost estimates and probable financing. Next slide. And this is the last slide. So this is just a graphic flow chart of the process that we go through when we develop the transportation, all the required components for transportation. So an inventory existing facilities, the future facility needs are based on our growth, the analysis of existing facilities and future based on the level of service analysis, identify improvements for 20-year, prioritize in 6-year increments, and identify the financing. And then that 6-year capital improvement plan will be incorporated into the Public Works full capital improvement plan that they prepare as part of the budget process. So, and it says biennial, but it's really annual here. So that does happen every year. So with that, I know I gave you a lot of technical things, but for tonight, we are reviewing goals and policies as you have been for the last few meetings. So happy to entertain any questions that you might have had kind of on the technical side of what goes into transportation planning under the Growth Management Act before we move into the chapter itself.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commission? No? Okay. All right, well then, let's move into the draft. And yes, go ahead.
So really quick, to kind of, I guess to maybe build off of what Karla said, I actually do have the level of service times written down, and I can share them with you if you'd like to know, or I can just give you a frame of reference. Depending on how fast you sing the happy birthday song would be the equivalence to a level B or level C level of service for an intersection. So if you think about singing that song in your head, again, depending on your tempo, you would get a B grade or a C grade. So now that we have that reference, a level of service of A is less than or equal to 10 seconds. And this is for a signaled or roundabout. So when you think about signaled, you'd think about traffic signals, four-way stops, things like that. Level of service B is greater than 10 seconds and less than 20 seconds. Level of service C is greater than 20 seconds, but less than 35. D is 35 to 55, and that's the level of service for all intersections outside of Washington. Level of service E is 55 to 80, and again, these are in seconds. And level of service E is for downtown between 5th and Brown on Washington. And level of service F is anything greater than 80 seconds. And the intersection on the intersection of Squim Ave in Washington has a design service level of F. As a frame of reference, all of our traffic signals have a cycle time that can max out between 90 and 120 seconds. Currently, I believe they're set at around 85 to 90. So should the maximum time run, we will be in that E to F threshold. So the question then, I mean, as we're all hearing these level of services, you think about your grades in school. Well, why is D, E, or F an acceptable grade for a level of service of an intersection? But if you really think about the intersections in our city that aren't signaled, right, and that aren't traffic signals in this instance, and you truly think compared to how many times you would stop and sing through the happy birthday song the whole time you're at that stop, it's very few. It's kind of one of those scenarios where you could hear 100 great things on your birthday, but one person cuts you off on your way to your birthday dinner and your evening is ruined, right? Level of service D is very common, both at the level of WashDOT, at the level of FHWA. I would be willing to bet that City of Port Angeles has very similar intersections to ours as far as level of service, being in the D to E range. Same thing with Port Townsend. So it's not unheard of to be at that service level. The last comparison I would like to make when we talk about level of service D for our intersections, is there has to be a threshold and a line drawn somewhere. It's the same reason we don't design bridges for the seismic level 8, 9, 10 earthquake, or houses and buildings for the Cat 5 hurricane to be standing in those events, right? There comes a point where your investment in the service of whatever you're looking at exceeds the practical cost. And again, that level of service D is kind of where that threshold through studies has been drawn. Is it worthwhile to maybe go from D to C? I would say that depending on the intersection and the ADT, absolutely. But really where you get the bang for your buck is trying to go from E to D or F to E or even F to D back up to that level. So I just wanted to give some quick commentary on that, maybe provide some perspective and some references as we kind of walk through, because level of service of intersections is a pretty common measure for a traffic system for vehicles. And as Karla said, now we're going to be looking at that for pedestrians, multimodal, bicycles, all those things. So I haven't looked into those yet, and they are new. So I'm sure they will change throughout the years, but it's another layer of analysis for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
So you mentioned the level of stress before. Are you referring to in the AASHTO design guide, they have those turrets and it'll say this speed with this level of traffic would be a 1 or a 2 level of stress, that kind of thing?
That is the concept. Yes, it is. I think that it will be something that will be worked out with Nick and his team with Transpo as part of the transportation master plan. The concept is that it's based on volume of traffic, speed of traffic, and how the walker or bicyclist is going to feel in certain type of facilities. So whether it's it's a shoulder, a bike lane, a separated bike lane, or, it's not even by the road. And so the best level of service is going to be you're on doing your own thing. You're on the Olympic Discovery Trail and you're biking there. The level of stress at the highest level is going to be you have very limited to no shoulder, and you're riding your bike or you're walking with traffic at higher speeds. And so it is a sense of feeling of safety and so it's the way that the traffic or the transportation engineers are trying to quantify how people feel when they're biking or walking. And so I think, to Nick's point, they're going to walk. That's part of their work with the master plan that I'm not sure if you've got to yet or not, but they will be determining that. I think the level of service has been established, though, in the policy. So we can talk about it maybe a little bit more when we get there. Yeah, so it's in policy 3.1, so we can talk about it there. But yes, that's what we're talking about. Yes. Mhm.
So just to back that up, yes, the level of stress, we have some preliminary maps, kind of heat maps that show and it depends on what level of stress you're looking at. I believe it can go up to 4. So we have those preliminarily mapped based on our existing traffic model through. It's a little bit of a black box to me. So when they try to explain it, I'm saying, okay, hopefully it'll make sense by the time we get to the draft of our TMP. But it very much like the vehicular level of service, there's an existing model that has been calibrated based on observations in the field. And now we are working with Karla and her consultant team on getting that future land capacity analysis taken care of, where we will then overlay our multimodal maps, our bicycle network maps, our pedestrian priority maps, things like that, to get that different level of stress.
Okay, thank you. Alex, did you have something?
Ken, I understand we've invested in upgrading streetlight computers, or in the process, or at least recently, or maybe it's underway. Will synchronized lights help throughput through, say, Sequim Washington intersection, or smart lights, or do they adapt to different times of day, days of the week?
So currently, am I going through this speakers? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure since we're recording. So currently, the term we use is coordination. So east-west corridor is coordinated for all patterns for traffic signals on Washington. That was done so we could very much mimic Port Angeles, where if you hit one green light heading east or west through their downtown core, you can travel all the way through if you so wish. It's a little wonky now since they've been doing work, so maybe think about it before they started doing the ADA ramps and go about it that way. So based on our preliminary traffic counts and based on our calibration and fine tuning we've been doing this year, really the east-west travel from basically 7th through Sequim Ave needs to be prioritized and coordinated when comparing to what I'm going to be calling the off streets or north-south approaches. We've been deeply discussing, Karla mentioned an afternoon peak, which is very unique for Sequim. Usually cities have either an AM peak hour travel or a PM peak hour travel. But our true peak hour happens between the hours of 11 and 1, and I believe more specifically 12:30 or 12:45 to 1:30 or 1:45. Now that peak is only slightly higher than our AM and PM, so we still have both of those peaks. But again, when a development comes in and they're asking, when if they want to do traffic counts, when should we collect data? We give them that 11 to 1 window. So that's to answer your question, Commissioner Fain, that east-west coordination is how we're currently running. Now, through our fine tuning, we have been able to address issues like north-south on Squim Ave early in the morning, going off the highway north to allow people to get to work or school. We're still fine-tuning the evening when we see the majority of traffic heading in all directions. And the afternoon, again, is prioritized east-west. So really, now that we have our timing plan almost dialed in, the next option, if you'll recall in my TIP presentation, our systemized signal upgrades is getting our cabinets up to the point where we can add additional channels for things like a flashing yellow, more dynamic allocation of time for turn signals and for through traffic. Currently, we have 6 channels available to us, and I don't think channel is the right term, but it's eluding me right now. But basically, we have only 6 ways to influence traffic, and based on review with my team and talking with the consultant, we need a minimum of 8 to make significant difference. And we just don't have the infrastructure and the cabinets to support that. I believe we're going for a total of 12. So we'll have an additional 6 spots to have opportunity to bring in other tools, such as, again, flashing yellow arrows and some pedestrian alternatives, things like that. The other opportunity, since we're talking about east-west coordination and kind of going back to the level of service, the other thing we're looking at and investing in is alternate routes and complete streets, which is something I believe that will be in the policy, but also addressed in the TMP. Complete streets being 2-lane streets with bike lanes, multimodal paths, traffic calming, potentially things like roundabouts or mini roundabouts, things like that. So being able to get traffic off of Washington and off of our major, like 7th and 3rd and Squim Ave, to be able to spread out that traffic load instead of being concentrated on Washington. That's another alternative. So in combination with signal improvements, alternate routes, we believe we should get some improvement to be able to move away from that level of F, level of D, to maybe get our level of F up to E and our level of E's up to D's. But the thing we're dealing with, unfortunately, is the real solution is adding 1 lane of traffic in each direction in Washington. And we just don't have the opportunity to do that. We can't have 2 lanes going each way. We don't have the room unless we take away sidewalk, which I don't want to do. So finding alternatives to that is challenging. The realization of that has finally settled in. And so that's what we're working for, is to get expand our network to be more capable of handling pedestrian and vehicle traffic to relieve Washington.
Okay, thank you. Larry, did you have something? No? Okay. Okay. Will?
The east side interchange with 101 might do quite a bit to relieve traffic on Washington, because you can't get into Squim if you're traveling down 101 unless you take Squim Ave or River Road, I suppose. Is WashDOT anywhere? Is that anywhere in their planning that you know of?
Well, it was. um, but what I'm told is we'll get another stab at that in, I believe, another 6 years. We're currently, and this is the ubiquitous we of City of Sequim as an organization, are looking to see what alternatives can be pursued to keep the ball rolling. Whether it's rescoping the project, phasing the project. But yes, the opening up and completing the Simdars interchange would be another relief valve. It seems to be less realistic the more stones we turn over, but we're still turning them over. So the reason I didn't bring it up in my original comment was because the options that I presented and discussed are a little bit more within our grasp to commit to. And it's only dealing with city decisions instead of bringing in WashDOT as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, any more questions before we move on to the comprehensive plan chapter? Okay. So let's take a look at chapter 5, transportation, and we'll do what we normally do as far as look at each page and see if we have any comments or questions. The first page is going to be the plan. It's 5.1 and 5.2, the plan context and the goals and policies. Any questions or feedback on this page? Looks good to everyone? Okay. So let's go to the second page, which is 3.21, the network consistency and straits. How about this one?
That,
No, we just got there.
oh, we just got, oh, yes. That's been kind of on again, off again, for several years, hasn't it? And is this stating a commitment to develop that? In TR 1.3?
I would say yes. This reinforces that that identification. It's the one that would take the least amount of pre-design work, let's say. Maple would be another option, but there's right-of-way acquisition that would be needed. Maple is also closer to Washington, so Prairie is pretty much in the middle between State Route 101 and Washington, and already is a throughfare east-west between 7th and Sequim Ave. So it is the best candidate, and you could see this as a reinforcing of that decision.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Under policy TR 1.1, we talk about a classification system. Boulevards, urban avenues, downtown Main Street, school connections. How is that different than the functional classification that is kind of the neo-traditional with collectors and those types of required right-of-ways for funding?
Great question. So I had the same exact question, and after spending some time going through our transportation master plan, going through notes with our consultant, the best answer I can give you is to try to, well, when I was in school, we had overhead projectors. So the classifications you see there, rural transitions, Main Street, school connection, active alleyways, those are the end result of having your standard road classifications overlaid on your bike network, overlaid on your pedestrian priority, overlaid on your multimodal, overlaid on the different figures that we have, which are about 5 or 6 in our transportation master plan, to try to classify those routes as they stand stacked on top of each other when you have those 5 or 6 sheets projected onto your overhead map. That's the best way I can try to explain that.
That's a good way. My other question then would be, is that being accepted by the funding agencies as a method of funding these various classifications that we've identified?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And I think too, Nick, isn't that the functional classifications that are recognized by WashDOT like aren't gone away, and they live within those classifications in various places, you know, as they're presented in the city. And for grant funding, you can identify both. You can say this is how you WashDOT have classified the street. This is how we City of Sequim have acknowledged it. Is that not? That's my understanding, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, and there's much like the different layers to the final overhead picture, there's a lot of different ways to present it, right? Another way you can look at it is the road classifications like we have, like local, neighborhood, collector, arterial. There's an argument to be made that if you just focus on vehicles and freight, that you follow those, right? And that's where those come in. But if you're looking at, say, vehicle and bike, you know, now you start to bring the 2 separate maps into the overhead, and that's where you might get a boulevard. Well, now if you're talking, okay, well, pedestrian, vehicle, and bike, that might be the school connection, right? And so that's kind of how these things start to play nicely in the sandbox. And that's where you get this TR 1.1.
Okay, perfect. I like the new classification. I think it's cool.
Okay. Anything else on this page? Yes, Karen.
PR 1.4, second to the last sentence,
Yeah.
development should be consistent. Need a space.
Oh, thank you, Karen. I saw that too. I was going to say something. I did notice too, and I don't know where it is in here, but bicycle is spelled wrong but I mean, I don't know which one of these pages it's in, but yes.
The line above the be consistent is for automobiles. Needs a little space in there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They're just being consistent.
Sorry, what policy is that in?
It was 1.4,
1.4.
Joe, just above the be consistent,
Second line.
or yeah, diagonal.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything? Yes, Larry.
I just have a question. So we've got a lot of developments that are already in place. Is this going to be retroactive, TR 1.4, the connectivity? Is there a way to do that? Because I just happened to live in one of those developments that was under some grandfathered thing, but it's not well connected, and we're between a couple others. So is all of this policy going to be kind of a retroactive fix, or is this only going to apply to the new pieces that get developed? Meaning, if you don't have a new development connecting to your existing development, you're just going to be kind of stuck in the past with no connectivity.
It's a very good question, and I will do my best to not go over my skis on this slope here. So on the policy itself, unfortunately, since it's a new policy, the verbiage and action of the policy would be applied from when it's adopted moving forward. Now, what I can say is whether Carla intended, or actually, I think this was originally in our TMP, right? The black text.
Yeah, and yes. Yeah.
So in what I was going to say is in practice, connectivity is a major talking point when developments come in to our development team. Unfortunately, a lot of the established communities are either built out. You know, what comes to mind is, and I can't remember the name of the community, but the Morgeson Loop street there off of West Squim Bay Road. Right, those folks connect to their interior streets and have one way in and one way out for West Squim Bay. And not only are they kind of completely closed in, so they would have to tear down someone's house to create another access point to West Squim Bay Road. They're also private streets. And so a combination of these closed unit communities, and some of them are public and some of them are private, but the big issue is you have a self-contained network with only one access point. And so where we can, we encourage 2 points of access from 2 different streets. The next best choice is 2 points of access from the same street with a certain amount of distance between them based on the lot that is being developed. And then, of course, the third option is the least preferred option of just the single access. Now, there's some communities where there is no choice. What comes to mind is the Bella Vista community that is being proposed on Miller Road. They have a frontage of only, I would say, anywhere between 50 and 80 feet. They have no choice but to have one way in, one way out. There is another community that is on its way to approval for site construction that is northeast of Rolling Hills, where our 5th and McCurdy booster station is. There was a waiver granted, or variance, depending on what term you prefer, to allow those folks to have 2 points of access, even though it did not meet the criteria of minimum distance. Now, there's other things like it being more than likely a dead-end street because of the Avamere development, but there are issues like that come up where this policy is in practice currently. So that's the best way I can answer that question for you.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions on that page before we move on to the next one? Which is at the top, the policies TR-1.5, and then we go into goal 2. How about this page? Any questions? Yes, Dennis.
Let's see, policy TR 2.2. You bring up impact fees. And I did a little checking and ours are 10 years old. Is there been any kind of discussion to maybe get the right studies in place to analyze those low impact fees, because they're the 7th lowest in Western Washington?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Those impact fees are directly tied to the facilities plan that's detailed in the transportation master plan. So the short answer is yes, we are going to be looking into those with the upgrade and update of our transportation master plan.
Okay, good.
Moving forward, we have several options on these impact fees. We can transition them to like how we're doing with our GFCs, our general facility charges, which is applying an inflation rate, so that there's an annual increase to run on track with inflation. Another option is to do periodic reviews that would basically look at the capital facilities plan, see which projects have been complete. We would then, based on the capital facilities improvements, do a new existing condition and projected condition with our traffic model and put in new projects. That takes a little time because then we have to update our facilities plan. There might be an impact to the comp plan. So you typically would only do that maybe every 5 years. So once in between, because the master plans you want to update about every 10 years. So you would do one update in the middle of it and then another update with your master plan. So there's some other options I won't dive into just because they do take some time. But we are aware it is something we are looking into and addressing right now. And it will be more in line to make sure that we don't fall behind.
Okay,
again.
perfect.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this page?
I just had, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but go ahead.
The next policy, 2.3, should we mention specifically the Transportation Benefit District and show some strong support for that somehow, and maybe in that policy? Or is it addressed elsewhere? I'm sure it's addressed in the Transportation Master Plan.
So I do believe that TBD is mentioned somewhere. I think this policy is actually talks about the physical preservation of the streets,
Right.
which is a program that we currently have. Right now, we preserve our streets through crack sealing and doing either what we call mill and fills or grind and overlays and rebuilds. I am actually pursuing some coordination with the county right now to get on what's known as their crushing contract. The county every year goes out to contract for chip sealing. You get rocks anywhere between 1/4 inch all the way up to 5/8 inch, and you put them down with multiple layers of oil and tack, and that's another maintenance opportunity for us. So I believe this is talking about the actual physical work to preserve, and the finance aspect of it will come later.
The funding aspect is in a different section? Okay.
Okay. All right, anything else? Okay, let's move on to the next page. Next page is going to have the blue box to the right. And we're finishing up on goal 2, and then we're starting on goal 3. How about this one? Yes, Karen.
I have a question on this one. When you get to the pedestrian level of service, we've got an abbreviation in here, PLTS, and we have under bicycle level of service, BLTS. What do those abbreviations stand for? And could they be placed in the document so that other people know?
Yeah, it's the pedestrian level of the level of traffic stress. So I think it might be helpful if we had a capitalization of each of those words so that then the abbreviation that comes after it's a little bit more apparent. So it's pedestrian level of traffic stress, PLTS. And then for the bicycle one, the BLTS stands for bicycle level of traffic stress.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Larry.
MLTS.
Right.
You've already done a great job explaining the intersection out here and and what the challenges are to overcome it. Is there a time frame, do you think, when it's not going to be that 80+ seconds? Because that's the only one I really hear people having a hang up about. And I know people who are shooting down Brown and other streets to get away from this corridor. Yeah. So just a time estimate.
So the most actionable one, the systemized signal, the cabinets, we're going to be pursuing that, advertising that in Q4 of this year. Q4 of this year. So I'd anticipate design in 26, construction 27. In the meantime, we will be pursuing based on our debt service, funding to design the complete streets, which, as we talked about previously, is Prairie. That's a pretty heavy undertaking. The current estimate, I believe, is $8.5 million. And that puts construction probably at another $1 million to $1.5 million. And that includes public outreach. So we're talking anywhere from 8 to 10 million. And currently, with our current workload, in combination with utilities and stormwater, to do that project in one swing would be very difficult. So we're talking about at least a 2-phase, if not 3-phase project. So, and then there's also that being funding dependent. So I would put best case scenario, assuming we can get funding in the kind of 27 year, is an additional 4 years to do the Prairie Street project in under a 2 or 3 phase aspect, assuming we get all the funding back to back. And then also in that kind of 4-year window is where we would be looking to have upgrades for 7th. We would be looking for the hardware upgrades to get new arms and extra heads for SQUIM 3rd and 5th. So we're looking at, talking again, using the overhead projection analogy. We have cabinets with complete streets, with hardware, with other complete streets kind of stacking on top of each other. So then there's also the consideration that the timelines will be impacted when projects are done. So we might not need to pursue all of them. So to try to make a short story long and then short again, I would say from now until best case scenario 2031 is where we would be looking to have those upgrades for the signals and for the complete streets in some form of completeness. And that's the best I can give you right now. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this? Yes, Karen.
Could you explain what a bicycle facility and a pedestrian facility example would be?
For the, in which policy, 3.1?
When you're talking about the pedestrian level of stress, and they'll have facilities which provide a
Oh, sure.
pedestrian level.
Yeah, so, and this will be, I can appreciate the question because you're reading these without the context of like the active transportation section of the transportation master plan. So a pedestrian facility is going to be a sidewalk, a shared use path. Those are going to be and there might be more. Those are what's coming off the top of my head. Bicycle will be bicycle, again, shoulder to bicycle lane to separated bicycle lane.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I do a question. So let's say future development, I'll just use West Quimby as an example. But we have quite a few roads where there's really not, like any shoulders built in or anything. And so if you have a new development that goes in where it might be kind of a heavy lift to, to really build into those existing roads, bicycle and pedestrian scooter mobility, would you look at something like, better access to the ODT? Or, what kind of a solution am I off base, or what are the different options for solutions that could potentially work? Because I know if you put a big development in, where you have more of that traffic, as far as pedestrian and bike and the roads are already not a lot of infrastructure on the side. How would something like that, like just a generic example of how that would be dealt with?
The first thing I would say is to provide a generic example for a non-generic condition would be difficult.
Okay.
So West Quimby specifically, much like Town Road, is a very old corridor. And so the alignment ownership is mixed between county and city. Sometimes there's not even easements or right of way, right? So I will do my best to keep this as short as possible. But again, since we're not talking about a generic scenario,
Right.
like say an upgrade to a facility like on South 7th for Rolling Hills, I will save my breath for options that I wouldn't pursue and just go into detail on what I would be encouraging and what I would look to have a developer do, and that is take advantage of our fee in lieu code that recently passed. Basically, what that entails is the developer not doing any improvements, but cutting a check to the city for the cost to do the work. What we would do with that money is pursue right-of-way acquisition for a shared use path, much like you see kind of closer to the daycare and in front of the Morgeson Loop community, to have a separated 8 to 10 foot multi-use path for walking, biking, scootering, things of that nature. Because to try to rebuild the corridor into a classic collector corridor that you would see anywhere else, much like White Feather, to try to rebuild West Quimby that way, your return on investment isn't there. So the alternative would be a separated horizontally multi-use path that winds its way through the frontages there. And that's where I would recommend the city pursue work. Either way, if you try to go classic and develop the corridor as it stands, or you do a detached multi-use path, both endeavors are going to take quite a while. Both endeavors are heavily involved in right of way, and both endeavors are expensive. It's just, in my opinion, the detached path gives you that better bang for your buck and kind of goes more in line with the rural use in that area of town.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else on this page? No? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. And the top policy on this next page we're looking at is TR-3.3. And then we go into 5.2.3, transportation safety. How about this? Any comments, questions, input on this page? Okay, if everybody thinks this looks pretty good, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Which the top one there, it's finishing up with the explanation of the land use and transportation, and then the goal TR-6 is on the top of the page that we're looking at. How about this one? Everybody thinks this page looks pretty good? All right. We'll move on to the next one. This one, the top is goal TR-7. How about this one?
Dennis, I wanted to note here, 7.4 is your transportation benefit district.
Anything on this? Yes, Eileen.
So traditionally, most of the funding for projects comes through city, if you, are they statewide grants or, I'm edging towards the availability of federal grants, which are a mess right now. So, my impression, we don't ask for too many federal grants for transportation, or is that shuttled through the state and county?
In general, we do not work directly with FHWA and the federal organizations that produce those kind of grants. We typically go through the county or at the state level, what's known as local programs. But to answer your question, that might be frustratingly broad, is we pursue as many opportunities for grants as we can. So the most reliable ones that we've gotten are through TIB, Transportation Improvement Board. We have a great working relationship with them. They're the ones that have funded our ADA ramp project that's going on right now. Through them, we spent $150,000 in city money to get over $700,000 in grant money. I believe TIB is state funding, so we don't have those federal strings attached to it. The other pretty reliable source actually is a federal source that goes through local programs. It's our STBG, State Transportation Block Grant, I believe is what it's called. That's funding our Priest Road project, our Washington grind and overlay that will be starting towards the end of August, and a River Road overlay. Those three projects together are just around $1.2 million, 86.5% of that, which is federal money. So just as two examples of how we're trying to use small amounts of local dollars to get big amounts of state and federal dollars.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else on this page?
So
Okay,
I do have one other thing on
Sure.
funding, talking about options and directly related to our transportation benefit district. And in an effort to not have to pursue the variability of state or federal funds, is the opportunity to bond our transportation benefit district funding. I don't have any numbers for you right now, but that is an option that we are looking at. And that will be going towards projects that aren't typically good applications. So things like sidewalks, things like, mainly sidewalks actually, is our biggest project we want to pursue. It's no secret to anyone that we have dead end sidewalks or sidewalk islands, you could say. And not a lot of people want to fund sidewalks unless you're doing the whole street. So to only do sidewalks, we believe bonding TBD is the best option, the most reliable option. And so we're working through that and scoping that right now. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit as something to look forward to in the coming years. And again, that's TBD dollars, city dollars, staying in the city, taking advantage of outside dollars to get those larger amounts.
okay, yes.
Is
Yeah.
the state safe routes to school, has that gone by the wayside now?
No, we actually put an application in for 4.5 million for state routes to schools. We actually made what we thought was the final cut list, but the amount of money fell short that they had originally thought they were going to get. So that same project, which is our North 3rd Ave project, we just recently put an application in for Safe Streets for All. And so we are pursuing both safe routes to school and safe streets for all money every opportunity we can when that opens back up.
Thank you. All right, anything else on this page? Okay, we'll move on to the next, which is starting with policy TR-8.3. How about this page? Nope. Okay, everybody good on that one? I think this is a nod to your excellent writing, Carla. Okay, so we'll move on to the next page, which starts with policy TR-9.6. How about this? And it goes into public transportation. Nope. Oh, yes, Alex.
Yes, there's always whenever stretches of the ODT need to be, I don't want to say transferred into public right away because you do have the detached path in public right away, but the goal. I mean, I come from the county, who I did quite a few trail projects there, so the mindset is you to have the ODT under its own alignment, its own infrastructure is the ideal goal, right? There's some places where that can't happen, and that's unfortunate. But anytime the ODT is moved on to a street or a sidewalk, we're always going to be looking for ways to move it into its own tract or own easement or own right of way. That way, you do maintain not only consistent flow of traffic, right? So you can try to reduce the amount of crossings of driveways, but it does maintain more of that kind of trail feel, right?
Okay, thank you. Anything? Yes, Will.
I just wanted to make a suggestion on policy 9.6. Maybe work in a way to talk about as an actual transportation system versus just for tourism and commerce, because it's a pretty good way to get around.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Anything else on this page? Okay. Let's move on to the next one, which at the top shows goal TR-11. How about this page? Good to go? Okay. And last but not least, page 13, which starts out with policy TR-13.3. How about this? Any questions? Yes, Will.
Another trail comment might be a good place to integrate a mention of the ODT or just other active transportation systems in general, because there's carbon neutral way to get around. Pretty easy way to check a box, right?
Okay.
As a new policy under TR 13.
I think it could just be integrated in 13.3.
13.3.
Mentioning active transportation as a way of reducing carbon emissions.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Alex.
The present status of rideshare, is it only on sharing vehicles in a daily commute? Is there ever been anything where you could go to a little app, find someone who needs to get to Port Townsend or the Silverdale, and then you could pick them up? And I think there'd be a lot of activity, sort of cyber hitchhiking. But I'm not sure what this rideshare mentioned. It's probably more traditional. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Does staff have any questions or comments for us or need clarification or?
No, I just appreciate the questions and I just want to appreciate Nick who handled
Yeah.
so much of the dialogue tonight and just really appreciate your expertise and your depth of knowledge, Nick. So thank you for being here tonight to help us navigate this chapter.
Yeah, thank you. All right, anything else on the transportation chapter draft before we move on to director's report, which I don't know if you've got anything or.
I
Okay.
do. So Christina asked me to pass on one thing for you all. And it has to do with a development project that you might be familiar with, West Bay Master Plan, also known as Seabrook. So that application did get turned into the city in early June, and it was determined counter complete in June 23rd, and it is under technical review by the development review team right now. And we will be giving them on Monday, the 21st, is when that determination of technical completion or incompletion will be made. So we're rounding out that review. She wanted also to let you know that that we're working on establishing a separate link on the DCD webpage for West Bay that will have the project status and all materials that are related to it there, so that if any of your your citizens ask about it and want to go to the city's website for the actual documentation of what we're reviewing and what we have, what the city has, it will be on a dedicated West Bay Master Plan website.
Okay, thank
So we're
you.
working on that. We're hoping to go live next week on that.
Okay. Yeah, can I request that when that separate thing is on the website, that maybe you shoot us an email or Emily does? Because I'm sure that will be something that we're probably going to get some questions, and it would be nice to be able to say here, thank you.
Yes, and it's the intention is that will be the platform where everyone can use it, citizens can go to it, and that will be where full transparency for what the city has will be presented on that webpage.
Okay, thank you. Alex?
And is the idea that a lot of that traffic going up to 101 to go downtown or big box area would be using White Feather from Seabrook to get to 101?
I'm not, I don't know if we know enough yet to answer that question. I can, if you don't want to, I mean, it's
No,
up
I got it.
I was going to say, can I just say one more thing? So what I do want to note is in this technical completion that I just mentioned that we're in, what that means, and your question reminded me that I should define that for you. What that means is that has the applicant provided sufficient amount of detail and substantive material in order for the city development review staff to make their substantive review of the application. So your question reminds me that we're actually not at that place to know those things. The question is, have they submitted a traffic impact analysis, a TIA, of sufficient detail to industry standards that then Nick and his team and his consultant can review it? But he might have an answer for you, but I did want to say that, like, what we're looking for right now is, have they given us enough information in the application for the city to do its full review?
Yeah, no, I think that pretty well covers it. So.
Okay.
You,
So we're not
Okay.
prepared to answer that
you
question.
took the words out of my mouth.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So.
So we're not prepared to answer the question yet.
All right, anything else, Carla?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, good of the order. Does anybody have anything for good of the order? Which I think maybe we should ask if our new commissioner could tell us a little about himself.
Sure. What do you want to know? I was a planner for, well, I guess I grew up on Whidbey Island, which, believe it or not, is only about 20 miles away from here if you can walk on water. So when I saw this come up, I was really interested because this is a town that's quite similar to kind of the environment I grew up in. And I see the issues that towns like the one I grew up in are going through. So I wanted to be part of the future of that town or of this town and see what I can do. I work for the county as the active transportation and trails coordinator. So if I talk a lot about the Discovery Trail, that's why I talk a lot about the Discovery Trail. So, yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Great. Do you ride bike a lot?
not as much as I should,
Oh,
but
Some.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It showed by your comments.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
All right, Eileen, did you have something?
I just wanted to say thanks to Nick for putting happy birthday to you in my head.
Yeah.
And luckily, I'm going to a birthday party tomorrow, so I'll be ready. So thank you.
My grandkids and I sing a red light, what do you say song. And I've got them convinced that if we can get to the end of the song and the light changes, that the light's actually listening to us. But it's about the same as the same length as the birthday song. So, all right. Anything else for good of the order? No? Okay. So that moves us to our last agenda item, which one thing you will learn is that this is Karen's favorite agenda item. We try not to bring it up all the time, but it is
Make a
tradition.
motion to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, meeting adjourned at 6:56. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.